compete. And I come to find out it's from, like, they said fitness competitions. I really didn't know what the hell that meant. I really didn't, because I grew up old school. Thanks to my dad, I was, exposed to old school bodybuilding. I was, exposed to Lou Ferrigno. I was exposed to Arnold and that type of stuff. So I'm used to bodybuilding. So if they had said bodybuilding, I still would have given them a weird look, but I would have known what they were talking about. But I ended up talking to somebody and they said bodybuilding. And I'm like, oh, so I look into it. I find out that they have rebranded everything. They call them fitness competitions now, which I don't like. But I found out that they have all these different categories now, especially for women. So it's not like what I thought, where it's like, oh, I can't look like that because I can't get muscles like that unless I take steroids. Now that they had, changed it so much since I was exposed to it, I'm like, oh, this looks like something I can actually do now. And they have natural, they have places where you get tested and places where you don't get tested. So I'm like, okay, I can do this naturally. For a minute, I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, but then I ended up deciding to finally get a trainer for it. But I got into it just because people were mainly guys, random guys are just looking at me and they're just like, oh, do you compete? And I'm like, what are you talking about? So it's just the initial loss of the weight. This is before I even put on muscle and started leaning out or anything. It's just how my body looked, where people are just like, oh, do you compete? And I'm like, oh, what? So yeah, I just got into it because I'm like, oh, I can compete in this stuff now. Yay. I always wanted to do that because it looked fun when I was a kid.
Yeah, I know growing up, I was exposed to bodybuilding. Like my older brother, he used to get the muscle mags. And I remember, seeing bodybuilding on television. Like, I know Lou Ferrigno, the Incredible Hulk, the original Incredible Hulk. Arnold
Mhm.
Schwarzenegger, the Terminator. As you know, this weekend is the Arnold Schwarzenegger weekend. And I have a debate on that, but we talk about that later. And yeah, everybody gets this, or usually it's either because of health reasons, because they wanted to get healthy and get in better shape, and then they meet somebody that says, "Hey, you have potential. You ever think about doing bodybuilding?" And it's funny they call it fitness. You think of fitness, you're thinking like the jumping around, and no, that's not me. I'm not.
Right.
That's too much. That's too much. Oh, wait, we have your comment from my man, bodybuilding fan 01. He's just coming through. He says, "Should be a good one." Appreciate that, brother. Also, we have here is Marquise Bowden. He says, "I follow
Hey.
her on IG and set my reminder for this interview. Glad to be here." Appreciate it, brother. Thank you. So thank you for support.
Yes.
So what was that experience like? Your first time competing, and what was the show?
Looking back on it now, I didn't know how much of a watershed moment it was, just for me personally, um, because I use it to inspire slash kind of kick people in the nuts with it, or kind of be brash with it, because I went through a lot of major events before that first competition, because the first competition I won, and when in less than 6 months of competing, I got my pro card. Um, but for the first one I won, it was just fun. I mean, I did have a fun time. I do definitely remember that. But looking on the events that happened before, like I know my first competition was in April or May, I believe. And prior to that, I got laid off of the paralegal job that I had right before Christmas, because the husband had some mental issues, and unfortunately, he's no longer with us on
Hmm.
by his own hand, and. uh, and unfortunately, there were some other things. I was actually trying to look for another job at another law firm. It just wasn't, panning out, because unfortunately the firm had a infamous reputation. But I ended up getting laid off, and I hadn't even been in the new house me and my husband at the time were in for a year yet. So it was a brand new house that I was paying for and everything. Um, And at that time, I was even more so of a breadwinner because, unbeknownst to me, my ex husband had relapse. He didn't tell me that he had a drug addiction past. Um, and I tried to be transparent with him before we ever got married, but apparently he was not giving me the same courtesy. He downplayed the fact that he dabbled in drugs in the past, but I'm like, I'm not judging. But apparently it was a relapse, and he relapsed hard into methamphetamines. So for this time, I've been dealing with a meth addict. So if anybody knows anything about what that's like, it's obviously not fun. So I'm dealing with that. I just got laid off, and bodybuilding is not a requirement. It's not something that's done to better your health. This is strictly something that it's honestly, for the most part, it's an expensive hobby. And
Yes.
I was like trying to decide whether I, wanted to continue or not. And I'm just like, I had pretty much put all over 50% of it in. I'm like, you know what, fuck it. Let me go ahead and keep going, because I pretty much know nothing else. It's like, okay, I lost my job. Well, oh, this is the first time I've gotten laid off. Let me find another one. Luckily, I had already gotten my personal training certification after I lost the weight. I was like, let me get my certification. And my idea was to head to law school and just train people on the side. That's really what the plan was. But since this happened, I decided to go ahead and go work at a gym until another law firm picked me up. But what ended up happening is I fell in love with training, and I pretty much didn't go back to that. And I saw, as I was, social media wasn't as, I don't know, it just wasn't as much ingrained into us as it was prior to the pandemic. And so, but I was following some major bodybuilders at the time, like Dana Lynn Bailey. And I was kind of thinking the same thing with her as well. If I'm going to, go into training as a career now, a personal training as a career now, bodybuilding would hopefully enhance that. Um, but I still kept training after going through like this whole like financial personal upheaval. We did separate earlier in the year. We separated like in February of 2018, so it was before, way a few months before my first competition, so that helped ease a lot of stress. So I was also back to being a single parent. So I mean, just winning the first competition was, I don't know, I felt like it was uh it meant more, like as I got older and looked back on that particular time, since it was so tumultuous, it it means a lot more now, considering all the crap that I went through at that time to finish it, and not only finish it, but win.
Yeah, that's a tough thing having addiction and dealing with somebody with that. I have known family members and friends have hit with addictions from drugs to
Mhm.
alcohol. I mean, my addiction is I like muscle buff ladies. That's I'm a muscle curse, bro. But I can understand being, like I said, I've been overweight a good part of my life, and I was active when I was younger. Then you get a job, and then you don't have the time to be active. You can't do this and that. And then a few years ago, I was taking care of my mom. She was sick, and I
Mm.
was, yeah, and I was taking care of her. And then I put myself to the side because she needed the help. And then when she left, she passed. I said, now it's time for me to take care of myself. At one point, I keep saying this, and this is true with me. I saw a picture of myself at her funeral. I was sitting in the chair when my sister took a picture of me. And I looked and said, dang, am I that big? And then when I
Mm.
went to the doctor's office, I put on the weight. It was at 485. That's almost 15 pounds for 500. And then I just started, I got to do something about this because I already have, I have a pacemaker. Had it for 10 years. I got it when I was, yeah, because I
Oh.
have family, issues, and I said, I need
Mhm.
to take care of myself because I don't have anybody to take care of. and I started doing the right things, like eating a little better. I'm not perfect at it. I'm not going to be perfect
Yeah.
at it. Yeah, but then I started working out a little bit, and then I dropped to right under 400 pounds right now. I did pick a little weight because right now I'm doing issues with my knees, and I can't get around much like I used to. Especially I'm getting
Mhm.
older. But I try to eat a little smarter, but still, like this afternoon I had chicken wings and barbecue
Nobody loves
chicken.
chicken wings. I can't get into chicken wings. I'm such a weirdo. I was born and raised in Texas. I don't get into steak. You know, barbecue's all right, but yeah, I mean, it's just I couldn't get into it.
You're weird.
Yeah, I'm weirdo. That's all right.
Well, don't feel bad. I don't like eggs, so that's so
Hey,
yeah,
that's kind of that's kind of a good thing right now.
yeah. Right now, I don't worry about like if people right now be acting like Pookie from New Jack City said, man, I be wanting some eggs, man. That I do anything with eggs, man. I even suck up now. that yeah, go ahead. But anyway, so what was the organization you were competing in at the time? Was it that was
So, because of how I leaned out and taking some posing clinics, I was very excited too. But it's a double edged sword, especially now. But I'm in the physique, and it just depends on the organization. Because the thing is, I never touched NPC. That's the big one. I do agree with the trainer that I had at the time. I do like to do small events because now I'm doing endurance, and so I'm doing a half marathon this year, and I don't want to do a big huge place like Chevron or the Houston Marathon here because they're pretty huge. I just want to start with something that's small. But I started off with Naturally Fit, or or that's the name. Oh, Natural Fit Federation. It's based out of Austin, and then the bodybuilding organization that I got pro in was Global Bodybuilding, a GBO organization, and they're based out of the Dallas area. Um, in their division, I would be in bodybuilding. They're one of the few organizations that still has bodybuilding categories for women. And when it was in the Naturally Fit Federation, NFF, it was physique. That was their biggest one. But for both of those, it does. The only thing that I was happy about, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a fan of the bikini posing. I'm not a fan of the, especially that damn back pose where it looks like I'm ready to be mated. I'm not a fan of it. So, and I do have a background as a stripper. And it's like, why in the world do I have stripper heels that I'm wearing in a fucking bodybuilding competition? So when I was told that, because of my build naturally and how I leaned out, I would not be needing heels because of how big my legs are. And I'm just like, oh, thank God I can do the regular poses that I grew up on. I don't have to do the really girly pose, whatever the fuck that is. I'm like, that's not what I grew up off of. So I was really happy that I got to do that stuff that I had always seen growing up when I was a kid.
this is something we have now you said you were a stripper.
Yes, I used to be. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I used to work in a strip club. Yeah, hey. I can say this. A guy I used to work when we used to work a strip club. I used to have a couple of jobs. I used to work part time at
Mm-hmm.
the gas station. My first real job when I was 16, and then I was working in a textile plant. And then, was a few years ago, I was working a strip club. I was doing that, working the door, doing the gopher, getting the girls money, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to take drunks out when they were in trouble. Guys would say, "Hey, George, you work at strip clubs." Go, hey, dude, if it's a good night, we don't have any problems. That's good, but it's not always sunshine and rainbows. I have broken up a couple of stripper fights too.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, bodybuilding is a tough sport, especially when you're about to get into it. And the difference between, as you look at it from the natural competitors into the more enhanced competitors, that's a big difference because it takes a
Mm-hmm.
lot longer to put on muscle if you do it
Yes.
naturally.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think for me, I think that's one of the few. I'm like, bodybuilding is more of a. I mean, what I thought it was kind of hilarious when I first, it's like when I was really green, like I want to say it was the beginning. I do remember it was the beginning of the year because that's when I started working at a gym. Actually, I taught when I stated that I was going into bodybuilding. The bodybuilders that were there, I swear, every single one of them were talking about how they were using steroids like with no like no it's not like oh they wanted to kind of feel me out wait to see if I was cool or anything. No, they just straight up were telling me, it's just like I'm using it's like they feel compelled to use steroids because of how wonky or messed up their genetics are. They or one of them, he has I think he has an asthma issue or something, so he has to take cortisone anyway to help with his asthma and stuff like that, or something of that nature. So he can't compete naturally for anything because of his medical condition. At the same time, steroids wouldn't have helped him because he can't grow. It's like he can't grow his shoulders. It's like he's done everything to grow his shoulders. And it's like they won't grow. And then he ended up getting an injury and stuff. And so that kind of, set him back. So it's like a sore spot for him. And like some other people, they're just like, some of them take it like heck. Even one of my mentors, admitted to, or he admitted openly in one of his video Instagram reels that, he, took steroids for his bodybuilding. And I'm just like, I just didn't know it was so commonplace. I know it's done differently now versus back in Arnold's day where they're just like shooting up in the locker room. It's done a lot differently now, but it's just still baffling to me that some people are still trying to hide that fact and present something, but for the most part, it's just amazing that it's still done so commonplace. I guess because I do have a medical background as well. I mean, I feel like I've done so many things, but I used to work as a vet tech, and anybody that has a medical background, steroids is the last thing that you want to use because steroids can be so harsh on the body. So I don't even want to go down that route. I mean, but I've been lucky. I've never been skinny, but I've never been, it's not like I, take to gaining fat, I just have a naturally muscular build. So I've always had that even in school. So yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. I think like that's a factor when it comes to bodybuilding. If you have good genetics, then you have to work as hard, but you still have to work at it. And if you
Yes.
don't have those good genetics, you have to put in the extra work. Training, the also the process. This is the thing about bodybuilding. It's about not trusting the process, but understanding the process and
Mm,
what's involved in it. Not everybody can, in steroids, yes, it's used, but it's not the big part of it. It's just
mm.
it's such the culture of it. And usually, some of the people who talk about steroids are usually a bunch of gym bros. They just generally just pop and say like, "I just want to look good, bro. I want to look diesel, bro," and don't realize you don't need to take it every single day. Like some people,
Right.
they say they have a cycle. They have a time when they want to take their gear, especially when they're
Exactly.
prepping for the season. They just say again, this is the All Schwarzenegger weekend just started, and bring the biggest show in the world. My personal opinion about Arnold, because he has kicked out some divisions I really enjoy. That's women's bodybuilding, physique, and figure. We have a comment from man Marquise. He says, "Shout out to Marquise." He says, "There's always what is that?"
Papa knows.
Papados. Okay, and he
That's a very
also
it's a very popular was it Creole Cajun restaurant down here in the Houston area. Very, very popular. So yeah.
all right, all right, all right. Maybe that's you there. It says, "I think San Antonio has a 5K Alamo run. A former co-worker competing in that one." Okay, yeah, she can do
Yes,
that.
yeah, they
Yeah.
do.
My wooden day is over. If you see me running down the street, you better be, especially with a bad knee. I'd be like, yeah. So,
Look, I've had two
so
ACL surgeries. I know.
what? Two?
I've had two
Ooh,
ACL surgeries.
ooh.
Yeah,
Right now,
I know that very well. Yes.
yeah. Right now, I'm thinking about. I gotta talk to somebody. I'm kind of hesitating, but I know I need to move around better because, like I said, I'm getting older. I want to be able to move around better so I can get, because I was working out, and then it just really got to the point where and plus, right now my car's in the shop. I gotta get it fixed. I can't travel out, so I try to do stuff around the house, and then kind of, I need to get myself motivated to get back into it. So, folks, what we're going to do while we have Melanie here is we're going to jump to her social media for a little bit. If you want to follow her, her links are in the description of the live stream. You can check her out. Also, check out interview with man KL the Wanderer. You want to see that. But guys, I know she's not a bodybuilder because I know once you guys come here, you like to see the big, buff, muscular chicks. But she's a nice lady.
I'm
I
working
invited.
on
She,
it.
take your time.
I'm
Take your
getting that
time.
body back. Like, look, because I mean, like, it was, what was it? I want to say 2022 and 2021 were really rough on me. I'm like, yeah, those were some really rough years. And I'm like, I'm human like everybody else. And but I had to make some choices. And I kind of had a moment like you. And I also have a friend locally here in Houston that went through the same thing. It's like, you see yourself in the mirror, or you're confronted with some type of truth, like whether it's a number on a scale, whether it's a photo or something. And for me, I started paying attention more, or honing into my mentors, because I didn't like where I'm at financially, and that took a toll on me. And I let it, bleed into everything else, including my health. And I'm just like, I didn't know I had really ballooned to where I was until I did, and was it Andy Frisella's 75 Hard. And one of the rules is for 75 days, you've got to take a picture, you know, of yourself. And so seeing myself doing those things for 70, and it is hard, squeezing in 2 45-minute workouts, is not easy for anybody. That was the thing for me. And so seeing the before and after from 75 days, it let me know how much weight I had gained, how much I had ballooned. It wasn't really just, it didn't sink in, or maybe I had deluded myself, because it's like, oh, well, certain clothes weren't too tight, or it just wasn't bothering me enough. I don't know what the fuck it was. But seeing those pictures, I'm just like, yeah, I'm like, I had no business. I felt sometimes like I had no business being a trainer either, because it's like, how do I let myself get this fucking big? Like, what the fuck happened? Now it's changing to where it's like, I don't want to go back, and I'm like, I don't care to go back into bodybuilding. I did find there is someone that I'm following. I'm not really emulating or getting training from him or anything like that, but he is a hybrid athlete based out of Austin, Nick Bear. And he looks like a bodybuilder. Like, he can, give him a month or two, he can get nice and tight to go on the stage, but he does endurance. And, he debunked the whole myth of you have to be really bony skinny to do these endurance sports like triathlons and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, that's great, because I didn't really want to get back into running, because I actually want to get the physique back, but I want to maintain that, and I can still go run a marathon. Okay, that's great. So that's what I'm working on now, is, getting the aesthetic back, but at the same time, I'm working on the endurance for this half marathon that I have coming up in May.
Yeah, not everybody wants to be a bodybuilder. Everybody wants just to enjoy the benefits of working out and getting in shape and just
Yeah.
getting in condition. I know I'm not gonna ever be a bodybuilder because look at these. I mean, you look at a body like this. It's like I'm like Foster from Austin Powers. Did I hit the man? But we got my man Marquise. He says I'm a Texas
Yeah.
guy too. Just let you know. Appreciate that, brother. And also, as I said again. What we're gonna do, folks, while we get Melanie here, we're gonna jump into her social media for a little bit. Her IG. You want to follow the links in the description. And guys, I know, like I said again, she's not a bodybuilder, but I tell, and this is not against you, Melanie. I tell it as a warning.